Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. Let's get back to lightsabers. I will put more Predator reviews up eventually. I do promise that. I think I've been doing a couple of those, but I wanted to kind of mix things up a little bit, and I had some nice pieces coming in more recently. So I wanted to get back to lightsaber prop replicas. I've been on quite a journey over the past 1 year or so, and it's finally sort of culminated in this piece. I am skipping a few pieces that's come in before, which I'll get to, but I just wanted to kind of review this because this is actually a little bit of a momentous piece, because this is the last sort of what I consider a high-end lightsaber that I have to get. I recently obtained it locally. Quite happy that I did. And with this, I have, in my mind at least, obtained essentially all of the major, high-end lightsaber replicas that's out there that's licensed, with a couple of exceptions, which I'll get into. This is, of course, the EFX Luke reveal lightsaber from Return of the Jedi. EFX, which I've done one previous review of, the Ahsoka Tano Director's Edition, Signature Edition, was a company that was started by individuals who used to be employed at Master Replicas, and they were trying to sort of carry on the legacy of Master Replicas, but unfortunately, they weren't really able to do that. There was quite a few problems. This is well known and ancient history. They're starting to make more of a comeback recently, and I wish them the best. It seems like their newest offerings hopefully will be on time, but I don't know if the quality will be quite the same. I was very happy with the dark ray lightsaber that I got, but there's been some rumors that the newer pieces are going to be die-cast metal, which I'm not as thrilled about. But those will be subjects to be discussed in other videos when the product does come out. But many, many years ago, they released a few of the lightsabers, and in terms of the high-end ones, really, there's only three that come to mind: the Ahsoka, the Maul, the so-called Legend series, Maul lightsaber, and then this is the Luke reveal. And I think that EFX had a lot of plans, to do a lot of things. But because of just a lot of problems, which I don't feel qualified to talk about, I don't know what exactly went wrong with them. It all kind of just came up short. I mean, I get the feeling that the Legend series was going to be way more extensive than they were going to do. They started with Darth Maul. They got Ray Park's signature, and I get the feeling they were maybe they wanted to do more sort of iconic hilts with signatures, but that never panned out. And then the Ahsoka Tano, of course, and then with this Luke reveal, this isn't really like a traditional prop replica release, as it was based on a deleted scene from Return of the Jedi. And of course that never, after this one, they just stopped. And so EFX really, for all intents and purposes, came out with three so-called high-end replica lightsabers: the Ahsoka, the Maul, and the Luke reveal. And so I did obtain the Maul, and of course I've already reviewed the Ahsoka. And so now I finally got the Luke reveal. And recently, over the past, I would say 3 weeks or so, I have finally gotten the last of the 25 master replicas lightsaber hilts. And so the 25 plus the 3 here and the dark ray lightsaber. Let us not forget that. That's a total of 29 hilts. The Ahsoka dual lightsaber from the show is pre-ordered. That's 30. And then the dark saber, which they showed at San Diego Comic-Con earlier this year, I think is going to be eventually released. That'll be 31 total. I'm not going to get the EFX Mandalorian Luke Skywalker hilt, just because I think it's rather superfluous when I have all of these pieces already. So I'm going to pass on that. I don't think that's quite worthy enough. Even though maybe it's a little bit better material, I put that Mandalorian release of Return of the Luke lightsaber, which is basically identical to the Return of the Jedi versions. I would place it sort of along the same category as their so-called stunt resin lightsabers that they were releasing back in the day, which is not nearly as good quality. So there you go. I have all of them now, and I'm just going to take my time doing the various reviews, and maybe doing reviews on multiple ones, doing combinations, just really taking the time to kind of create a definitive video journal of these wonderful prop replicas that sort of chronicle the lore and the stories of the Star Wars universe, from the prequels to the original trilogy, even to somewhat the sequel trilogy. Now I'm going to move this back a little bit so I can put my tripod down. I will say that I'm not going to be able to obtain the prop shop Kylo Ren and Rey lightsabers. And I know that technically they count, but it's hard to sort of take those too seriously, because that company essentially got their license pulled and went out of business very, very quickly after they tried to sell these. I mean, who knows how many of these Kylos and Reys were even out there. Probably only a couple dozen, and they sell for astronomical prices. So those things are almost like not really replicas, but almost like, I don't know, the real thing practically. I'm still hoping that some company, maybe EFX if they're worthy enough, or maybe another company later on down the line, will get a license and at least give us the Kylo Ren and Rey lightsabers in similar build quality. That's more than just the terrible embarrassment, of what happened to Prop Shop. And as an aside, it is a little bit interesting, isn't it, that for the entire sequel trilogy, they gave us so few unique designs of lightsabers. I mean, basically Kylo Ren's and then Rey's is essentially a combination or a mishmash of Luke's saber from Star Wars: A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Not really a unique design. And then I think we have a very brief version of Leia's. And then maybe the one that Rey built for herself at the very end of Rise of Skywalker. So there isn't a lot of actually new designs, in the sequel trilogy to look forward to. But I'm hoping that comes out eventually, and that more people have an opportunity to at least own a high-level replica, other than the impossible to find prop shops. So it did kind of, fill me with a little bit of joy that I finally got the Luke reveal for what I consider to be a decent price, fair price. This was the last one I was missing from all of that series that I've been collecting for 1 year. And a few of you may think it may consider it actually madness that I was able to get all of them within just a year. Mid-December, I think. Mid-December of last year, I only owned 3 Master Replicas lightsabers. The Episode 3 Vader, and then the signature Empire Strikes Back Vader, and the signature Return of the Jedi Vader. Oh, and I also owned a non-signature New Hope So those are the 4 I owned, and now of course I'm up to 29. So what's the story behind this lightsaber? Number one, there's a couple of videos on YouTube. There's one by Robot Online from the UK almost a decade ago. There's one by Gabe, Star Wars, I think Star Wars Replicas, right? He's a pretty well-known fan on YouTube. He has a lot of really cool reviews of Star Wars props. He has one on there. And then there's like maybe another 2 or 3, all from many, many years ago, sort of talking about this hilt. So I'm just going to add my voice to that, and hopefully, give you my perspective and also give you some close-ups that you can appreciate. This is based on a scene from the beginning of Return of the Jedi that showed Luke in his dark robes, essentially fixing up or building, putting the finishing touches to his new lightsaber to replace the one he lost in Empire Strikes Back. He's in a cave. It could be anywhere on Tatooine, but for lore purposes, it seems pretty appropriate that he may be in the same cave that Obi-Wan Kenobi, had been living in all these years. It seems a little bit, familiar when you look at the cutscene. He's talking to R2-D2, and C-3PO can be seen outside. For the longest time, the existence of this scene was just a matter of, kind of hot debate. It had been denied by a lot of the principals, including even Mark Hamill himself, who denied whether it was even shot. But obviously, it was, and it's just like a really awesome scene. You got to see sort of the lightsaber and the inner workings of it in that scene, little glimpses and flashes. You actually got to see where the kyber crystal was housed. Just a lot of really cool details that normally, you would never be able to appreciate. But ultimately, it was cut. And I think the rationale was that they felt that, it would sort of spoil the surprise aspect of the beginning of the movie, where, sort of the lightsaber pops out and he first fires it up, and it's green. And they kind of really wanted that to be the big quote unquote reveal, and showing it, literally in the very beginning of the movie sort of deflated all the tension, right? The tension both of Luke's grand entrance when he steps into Jabba's palace, and also you sort of already know that at that point the R2-D2 is going to be involved in the rescue. And I do kind of agree with that decision. I think when Luke first lights up that lightsaber and it's green was a pretty awesome moment, in the movie for experiencing it for the first time in 1983, and Luke showing up in his dark robes as he force chokes the Gamorrean guards and walks through, and then uses the Jedi mind control on Bib Fortuna. I mean, that's a hell of a more impressive entrance for I think cinematic purposes. But now over 20 years later, when we know the movie so well, I think that deleted scene also offered so much more. It's a more quiet scene. It's a more quiet opening. And I feel it's a little bit deeper. And the fact that it shows him sort of constructing the lightsaber adds a lot more depth, I think, as part of his character arc and character development. So I'm a little bit torn about that scene and whether I really wanted it in the original, movie cut or not. But be that as it may, that was the lightsaber that EFX decided to replicate. Now, we have a lot of versions of the Luke Skywalker Return of the Jedi lightsaber, but keeping it very focused on just the license stuff. Master Replicas already released a limited edition and a signature edition of the so-called version 2 Return of the Jedi lightsaber that's battle damaged, and this is the version that you see predominantly in the movie, right? And then on top of that, they then released a limited edition and a elite edition of the so-called pristine lightsaber, in high build quality. At least the elite version, of course, was stainless steel, real crystal. So we already have those two versions, a signature and an elite, as well as the so-called limited edition versions of those two, you know. And so at the time when EFX was going to release yet another one, the obvious question that begged to be answered is, well, why would anyone want to buy another one when Master Replicas had already covered, you know, both, and one of them a signature from Mark Hamill to boot. And so they decided to take a different tact, and that's sort of what makes it so, you know, sort of amazing and unique, is that they decided to take that lightsaber from the deleted scenes, and they decided to replicate that and actually give you a lightsaber where you can see the inner workings. That had never been done before, and it's never been done really since, to my knowledge. Now, Disney does have a sort of a version of this with their Savi's Workshop, you know, kind of building your own lightsaber, where they kind of turn it into modules. And I've built that many times. You do it with metal, and you put the kyber crystal in the center, and it's a really cool experience. And I feel like the lightsaber definitely has, you know, good quality. I've been on record in the past, I'm fond of saying that it's actually literally the best souvenir you can get from a Disney parks. It's very expensive, of course. It's a couple $100s, but you know, you do get what you pay for, which is sort of like a metal prop, beautiful, you know, hilt colors and everything like that. But that still doesn't compare to like a high-end replica, right? Those are more cheap. You stick the, you know, the actual blade onto it. It's more like of an amazing toy versus like a high-end replica. And as a high-end prop replica, of course, they've never ever done anything close to the reveal, you know, lightsaber that EFX has done. And I've also, you know, sort of criticized EFX as being sort of a pale shadow of Master Replicas. They've also engaged in some questionable business practices. And so I think my criticism is well deserved. But here I really have to give them props. You know, they really set out to create a very ambitious prop replica, and they succeeded in large part in delivering a really unique and iconic piece. And I feel like it's kind of fitting that I ended my collection, you know, with this. I believe that the very first lightsaber I bought was Darth Vader from Star Wars A New Hope, non-signature edition. That was the very first lightsaber I bought. And then this is now going to be essentially the last, until maybe the new pre-orders, the last of the old guard, so to speak, okay? So before getting too much into the details, let's, as usual, look at the paperwork. So the first thing that's really pretty awesome is, you know, this includes a print. It's called Night of Passage by Jerry Vanderstout. And Jerry Vanderstout actually became quite a bit more well-known when he started doing a lot of the Lord of the Rings, you know, movies, right? He painted some pretty amazing, you know, I don't want to call them posters, but, you know, pretty amazing, like, I guess, art, you know, paying homage to those movies. I own quite a few of them. I own the 3 major ones that he did for each of the movies is hanging on my wall. So this was, I think, before, obviously, Lord of the Rings, back in 2011. So we're talking 12 years ago. And it just kind of shows this, in my opinion, just completely badass version of Luke kind of, you know, putting his lightsaber together, just using the Force. You can see the green kyber crystals floating, and just what an amazing interpretation, you know, of that moment in the cave. Now, of course, the scene itself, he's actually using his hands, but yeah, I mean, you could of course use the Force to craft your lightsaber, and that was sometimes actually even encouraged. And so Night of Passage as well, him being the Jedi Knight, is there. So all of them should include this print. And I think that that's a really, really nice addition. So just wanted to show that. Now this is really, really hard to see because of the plastic, but I think from this angle you can see that over him, over Luke, you can see actually the shadow of Darth Vader. So again, just a very, very beautiful and striking piece. So hopefully you can appreciate that to some extent as I'm moving it around, and that the plastic to protect this little lithograph or lithograph doesn't obscure your enjoyment too much. So there you go. We're going to put that aside. This is the EFX envelope, and it houses the certificate of authenticity and the other paperwork. So I'm going to open that up, and you can see we have all of this here, and we're going to take our time with this as well. There's a lot of things to go over. We'll do the less important things first. So obviously this is their limited warranty, very similar to Master Replicas. I don't know what the deal is with these stickers. Master Replicas had them as well. I mean, was this a thing in the 2010s? Did people really want these company logos so they could just stick them around their house? I don't know. But I think all the complete ones have that. Similar to Master Replicas, they had a registration card. So there you have it. And then we have the certificate of authenticity and the instructions. So let's look at the certificate first. There was no signature edition, sadly, for this. EFX never did a signature edition other than, Ray Park for their mall, the so-called Legend release or Legend series. It was a series of one. So this is just a limited edition, and it kind of shows you the various parts of the hilt that is revealed. So if we open it up, you can see here the storyboard of Luke crafting it. And then here, the film that was, the scene that was filmed. From the deleted scene, you can see him fixing up his hilt, putting in the kyber crystal, tooling it up. Let's open it up. So on this side, I can let you peruse at your leisure the certificate of authenticity. Again, I missed the signatures. I missed the gold seal that the older Master Replicas COAs had. And then, of course, I'm just going to slowly scroll up so you have the opportunity to read the details of the hilt, which I basically summarized already earlier in the video. So there you go. Hopefully you can freeze it and read it at your leisure. I really like the fact that for this certificate of authenticity, they decided to do the triptych fold out, just like the classy signature certificates of authenticity for Master Replicas. The paper feels good, and I like the fact that they gave you like this really, really nice story, giving you the background of the piece. This is, kind of, and they give you a photo, of course, of, Mark as Luke Skywalker. They give you the stills. This is just like a really, really nice certificate of authenticity, what I would expect for, a replica of this magnitude. And it's just miles better than the certificate of authenticity for the dark ray lightsaber. I mean, the paper quality was still very good, but it just felt like an empty husk, which, I mean, I guess, I guess it's appropriate because that's something that you could use to, describe, to describe the sequel trilogy. At the end of the day, when you look back on all these years later, it's sort of like an empty husk. There was nothing to say about that piece from Rey. There was no insight. It almost seemed like that lightsaber was released more as a matter of obligation. I think pre-orders for that had been taken literally years ago, and they just had to go ahead and do it. And I thought it was good quality, but still, the fact that they didn't have much in that certificate, basically just saying, hey, this is it, and moved on, I think speaks volumes to what EFX is now, versus what they were back then. Like back then, when that Luke reveal was released, I feel like they still had all these, dreams of grandeur, so to speak. They weren't delusions yet; they were dreams to again take over Master Replica's mantle and legacy before everything went awry. So this is one of the instructions, which just basically tells you how to put together the display stand. I'm going to go up here and you can read it again at your leisure. It's nothing too fancy, but it does show you that there are certain things that are important. A lot of times, when I get these instructions are lost because this is almost it's over a decade old, but there are fine nuances that are important. And if you're one of those people who don't like to read, then you could be setting yourself up for some difficulties here. So I have to say that I feel like the instructions that EFX put together was very, very well written and very clear. But basically what they're saying is that these two acrylic legs are slid in from the side, and it's supposed to be wobbly. You can move the metal a little bit to slide them in. You can slide them anywhere from the end all the way to the center, so you can decide the width of the legs. And once you've decided on that and they line up, there are these little tiny screws in the back. You have to use a very small custom, I think, Phillips screwdriver, one of the little micro instruments, and they just gently tighten it to prevent that from moving. Okay. And then in addition, they point out that there are actually very, very subtle differences in the concavity or concavity of the leg. And that matters because the one with the larger depression is the one where the hilt goes on, because obviously the hilt is a lot bigger and deeper. And the slightly less concave side is where you put the, the emitter, so to speak. So if you don't follow those instructions, you'll see that the lightsaber is not level, but actually tilted. And I think a couple of the reviews, it did actually show that. And so it goes to show you again that it is important to read those instructions so you're doing things properly. Okay. So again, technically, this is the front heat sink. That's the emitter, and then the control box and the hilt and the pommel. And that's the neck right here. So this is now telling you how to actually open the lightsaber. First, it tells you how to actually change the battery, which is really important. So in case those of you who managed to get one of these lightsabers and lost the instructions, you had to buy one without the paperwork, I'm going to freeze it here so that, or I'm going to actually show this to you so you can again freeze frame it and figure out how to properly change the batteries. It's not actually very intuitive. You need the AGC5, and you need 3 of them to power the lights. And then when we open up for the middle picture, it tells you how to turn on the blinking lights, and then also how to open up the various parts of the hilt, which I'm going to let you freeze and read at your leisure. And then here's the last part, revealing all of those different internal components that makes this thing so unique. And then finally, the normal safety announcements, letting you know all the things that you're getting, that's supposed to do. So that's it. When you buy this, it would be very, very nice to have all the paperwork, especially those instructions. Okay. So now, before actually examining the lightsaber in detail, let's just take a look at the plaque, for instance. So I'm actually going to I've decided the best thing to do is just to take this thing out so you can see it. So here you go. The logo is actually pretty subtle. You have to catch it just the right way to see it. It's not as dark as the Master Replicas plaques, but here you see the movie it's from, Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker reveal lightsaber, serial number 390 out of a worldwide edition of 1,000. This was about the time when the company actually, kind of went under. And so a lot of people were wondering if they ever did manage to make all 1,000 lightsabers. And I would say that I think there's virtually zero chance that they made the entire run. I don't recall seeing many numbers above 500, in my opinion. And now the numbers are random. They're done in random batches. But when they do these batches, they do batches of numbers. So I wonder if that would be the case. But when you consider how rare this hilt is, and you compare it to other hilts of runs of, say, 1,000 or 1,500 for Master Replicas, it just doesn't really, make sense. So my best guess is that they didn't come close to making 1,000. Okay. And if I had to hazard a prediction, I would say probably 500 of them were made, if I had to guess. So as you can see, the plaque slides in and out of here. Now, one of the things that EFX does do, which I really don't like, to be honest with you, is they make the stand for the plaque the same as the stand for the lightsaber hilt itself. And so this whole thing can actually be moved off of the base. You can shift it any way you like on the base. The whole thing can be moved off the base. And I don't really like that, because if you wanted to get, say, for instance, a custom signature plaque, it's going to be very difficult to actually properly show it, because you would have to put that signature plaque in front of this, and this is locked in. In other words, you can't move this to the side and you put the signature plaque next to it. It's by necessity smack dab in the center, which means if you move the whole thing backward to create space to put your signature plaque, the signature plaque will by definition then obscure the actual additional size plaque. Master Replicas, way was much more elegant, where the legs were part of the base, so then the plaque was separate and you can move it around. And EFX made a lot of these decisions. For instance, again, the fact that they don't include an acrylic case. Okay, so all of their pieces only give you the base. The base is not a mirror. All of these were done basically for cost-saving measures and also to reduce, for instance, headache. As you know, if you have a mirror base, there's always a chance that the mirror base can crack, especially where the acrylic leg is inserted into the base. The bases can scratch very easily. It goes without saying that you're going to save quite a bit of manufacturing costs if you don't include an acrylic case. The acrylic cases can obviously very easily crack and break, and then they would have to replace them. So again, they did away with the acrylic case and forced you to spend more money out of pocket to get one. But this wasn't reflected in their pricing, okay? And then finally, the fact that they don't have the legs actually attached to the base, again, makes it less likely for the base to crack, but then it just gives you this overall cheaper sort of feel when you're putting things together. And so in general, while these decisions were understandable. Just from a business point of view, from a practicality point of view, it does result, in my opinion, in a less classy presentation than master replicas. And it does force you to have to actually spend extra money to get those acrylic cases. And for a product like this, I'm sorry, that's just mandatory. Okay, mandatory that you have a case. You created the base without the case is just a horrible, decision. And in cases where master replicas made a similar decision, for instance, with the Darth Maul signature edition and limited edition release, which we'll be talking about in a separate video, and in the Millennium Falcon, which is just simply too big, it does detract from that final product, and it is definitely a negative. So in any case, here is what that looks like. They have the EFX screws, as you can see here, and you have the Star Wars logo right over here in the right lower hand, and they have this sort of clear plastic cover over a gunmetal brushed, kind of gunmetal gray brushed surface at the bottom, which means that dirt can't kind of get underneath there. You can wipe it by basically removing the screws, and then the whole this whole acrylic piece comes off, and you can dust this way. So sure, this definitely, again, saves on the potential cost of replacing the acrylic cover as well as the mirror base. But again, I think it detracts from it. So I'm going to move things away, and we are finally now going to come to the reason why we're all here, which is to look at this hilt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of move things again out of the way and get this base away so I can actually start examining it. So we've done this multiple times already. I've had multiple reviews. This is the Return of the Jedi, lightsaber, all out of metal. But again, because there's so many moving parts on this, this has nowhere near the sturdiness in terms of the build of, like, say, the Master Replicas Elite Edition. So we'll just start by kind of checking out all of the different aspects of this lightsaber. Kind of move it around. Let's see over here, the triangle ring. And then you can see this is 2011, 12 years ago, Lucasfilm and EFX. You look at the control box. And then this right here, you can see this is actually, moves a little bit because you're going to open it up to see the housing. Here's the heatsink right here with the ribs. You see a little Allen screw right here. There's two of them. It'll become important later on. Here you see the same two screws. And then you have the very nice neck. And then the emitter. And then we're going to show you the emitter. Head-on view. Very, very nice. Over a decade. No obvious scratches or damage or anything like that. It was a bit dusty, but that was easily polished off. So I'm showing you macro view, extremely close-up view. Now, you're not going to be able to tell this by just watching my review, but I think you'll be able to hear it. So see, there's a little bit of give here. There's a little bit of give here. Everything kind of moves, not even a millimeter, but like sub-millimeter. And of course, if I turn it like this, you can see it just kind of, like basically slip right off, right? So there is a certain fragility to this, and that's not a criticism. It's a necessary trade-off if you're going to actually create a reveal saber like this, right? But you have to be careful with it. Things can break, and things do feel a little bit loosey-goosey at times. So again, that's just one of the things you have to put up with. So now that you've seen this saber up close in all its glory, it's time for us to show off what makes this so special. So another thing, by the way, is that there's only so much you can get from watching the YouTube video, but it also feels like really, really good in your hand. It feels very weighty. There's a heft to it because, of course, it is essentially made out of almost, I would say, 95%, 97% metal, brass. And so there is that heft to it, where you feel like there's a real lightsaber in your hands. That's very important as part of the experience as well. Remember, this isn't like a painting or a statue. I mean, this is just a lightsaber. And so I think part of what makes these things so valuable and so good, and part of what we have to consider when we're doing the review, is the kind of that tactile component, right, of it. So it feels really, really good as well. All right. But again, obviously not meant for you to do anything crazy or to swing. Again, this thing is moving around. So let's get started on actually showing off some of the reveal features. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to remove the lid here, right? So take this thing off. It tells you to slide it downward, but you can actually slide it up and down. So this is the material. I don't know what this is actually. I think this is brass, but we're going to put that aside. And so when you remove it, you can see actually the internal workings of the control box, which is awfully, awfully cool. You can see all the circuit board, the circuitry. So this here is actually the battery. It's actually the housing of the 3 AGC 15 batteries. You take it out by basically pressing it down and then popping it up, and then you replace the batteries, and then you essentially do the same thing. You push it in here and then you pop it down. This is 12 years old, and the guy who bought it was not the original owner. He bought it from another gentleman. I don't know whether that guy ever changed the batteries, but the batteries sit in there to this day. And I know you're supposed to remove them, and I'm still debating whether I should or not, but it's made it essentially 12 years, and it hasn't turned into there hasn't been a problem again with the battery kind of leaking fluid or whatever. So I think we got good batteries. I think the test of time has shown that it's going to be good, and hopefully it's not going to leak. So I'm going really, really close to the camera and moving it from right to left, so you kind of have an appreciation of the details of this thing. So really, really nice. Now, there's 3 portions of this lightsaber that can be opened. The emitter is very simple. You don't have to twist or do anything. You just simply pull out, and you don't have to be hard. Just be gentle. And I'm just going to gently pull out, and you can hear it snap out, and you can see that the internal workings of that emitter. So again, it's nice detail. Very nice detail to see. It's symmetrical. You can just kind of see all of the stuff that's housed in there. For the heatsink, we'll do that last. If you want to see the kyber crystal, what you do is you actually grip the pommel, you press inward, and then you gently rotate counterclockwise, and then it'll snap back out. That releases the catch, and then I thought that it would slide out this way, so I was vainly trying to move it, and it just wasn't happening. So understand that actually this is all of this hilt is one piece. It can't be separated. This piece and this piece, there's no join line. So this is solid. So if you want to move it, you actually have to grab the heat sink and then slide that forward like so. So you can see the extra grooves right over here, kind of a nice touch. You can see the grooves here as well. And then if you do that, you will actually open up and show the kyber crystal, which is kind of odd You can see the electrodes here. That's that the kyber crystal channels that gets the power through. But I think it's really interesting that this kyber crystal, it actually just looks and feels exactly like the kyber crystals that Disney was selling at Galaxy's Edge. So, but it's not possible because Galaxy's Edge opened literally, I think, in 2019, and this was already made and released in 2011, which means that the design for it was already being done years before. So a decade earlier, they decided on this look for the kyber crystal, and it's carried through all the way to, again, Galaxy's Edge almost a decade later. So now that I have this part open for you, remember you had to push the pommel in and then rotate counterclockwise a quarter turn to release the mechanism so you can slide this thing out. So for the reveal in this area, you actually don't have to push anywhere, but you just turn clockwise. And after turning clockwise, you'll be allowed then to slowly slide open, and then you can actually see the internal workings, and you can actually feel a click, and then you'll now see that it's open all the way. So when open all the way, it is a really, really long lightsaber. I mean, after you can see I'm actually holding it all the way out in front of me so that you actually can get an idea for how long it is, So just slowly rotating it so you can get an idea. I mean, this is not as long as the double-bladed Darth Maul lightsaber, but it's in the neighborhood, which is actually pretty shocking. So anyways, let's get a little bit close-up detail. So this part here, the middle, is really thin. You have to be really careful about it. You can see that this thing actually moves a little bit, and you could damage it if you're not careful and gentle. So I'm just kind of showing you the details of the undersurface and the side and the top, and then the other side right here. So really cool. Now, what is the role of these little Allen screws? Well, believe it or not, the Allen screws actually go in, and if you make them really tight, it actually prevents this from moving. So I don't know if you can see it, but from here, do you see how I can move it up and down? So it's a little loose, right? It's a little loose. The engineering on this thing is not completely perfect. So if you tighten the two screws on either side, you'll lock it in place so that this thing doesn't move at all. And I did try that, by the way. But here's the problem. If you do that, you aren't able to actually close it. Somehow the tightness of these Allen screws pushes against the mechanism in here, and you can't slip past that to close it. So I fiddled with this to the best of my abilities so that I can tighten it just enough where we're reducing the give here, which I don't like, but still allows the saber or the hilt to be moved all the way in. Now, if I'm planning to display this permanently like this, which I'm sort of thinking about, then I would actually take the time to tighten this up because it's just nicer for it to be more rigid. So when you're displaying it, it doesn't look bad. And then if I wanted to, put it back together again, I can always do so. But mainly, that would be just for the purposes of this YouTube video. I think that I already have enough Luke Return of the Jedis where if I'm going to display this, I would want to display it completely open up in its full review form, so to speak. Okay. So anyways, this is actually what it looks like. Completely reviewed, revealed with the emitter opening up here, the neck, the heatsink, the inside of the heatsink being retracted to show you what it looks like, the control box opened, and then the kyber crystal at the back with this, that's sliding forward as well. So if you press this button right here in the upper right-hand corner, right there, that little button will start a 20-second sequence where these lights will flash. So we'll do that right here. As you can see it flashing. It runs for 20 seconds and then it automatically stops. So pretty nice. You can also stop it by just pressing it again, and that stops it, okay? So that's how you activate these lights here. To activate the kyber crystal, you just slide this black button, and you can see that this is a little bit flimsy. It's definitely not metal like in the Elite, and it's plastic, and you can see that it moves because it has to accommodate a little tiny switch. And then you can see that you have a pulsating kyber crystal. I'm going to just kind of let it sit there for a while because that is like an awesome effect. Really, really bright. And it's only powered by these little batteries here, so it just looks amazing. And I'm going to give it the full 20 seconds as it kind of does its thing. So there you go. But I love it. And by the way, when these lights are flashing, and then you hit this switch to cause the kyber crystal to flash, it causes these to stop. So unfortunately, you can have a situation where both of the lights are flashing as well as the kyber crystal flashing. I guess they didn't have enough battery power for that. So, I mean, that's basically it. I've shown you the functional battery operated parts, and I've shown you the actual review parts, okay? Just like that. I'm usually not a really big fan of battery or power in my replicas, just mainly because I'm always afraid of obviously the internal circuitry eventually not working, and also the batteries dying. And a dead battery is not that big a deal, but sometimes over time, especially if you buy a bad one from China or something like that, not only will the battery stop working, but it starts leaking. And in doing so, it can actually destroy the internal electronics. So just like with, for instance, Master Replica's own, example or foray into electronics, they created a thermal detonator, and they wanted to have sound and lights. And there's quite a few out there where the lights don't work anymore, or the sound is no longer working because the chip got damaged, where those things got dropped. So a lot of things can happen that can actually, damage electronics. So again, I'm usually not a big fan of that, but I would have to say that for this reveal lightsaber, you have to have the electronics. I mean, without the electronics and seeing the little flashing crystals, it just takes so much away from the presentation. So, I did make an exception for this, buying this, just like I did for the thermal detonator to get Carrie Fisher's signature. I also think that they hid the battery ingeniously. And it was not a big battery, but these little tiny button ones, and they hid it in the control box in a way that seems to me at least very, very natural, And they hit the buttons the best they could. Again, this is a little cheap. You can literally see it wriggle. You can hear it. If it sounds like cheap plastic, it's because it really is. But if you don't mess with it and just let it sit there, it passes the eye test reasonably well. And then the little switch on the inside right here. Okay, so I'm going to put everything back together again before giving my ending thoughts. So see here, you can't really push it, right? And so you actually have to just sort of gently begin the process. So first of all, let's just slide this down. Okay, that's easy. And then we need to just kind of push, wriggle. And then, so that move where we went from here, listen, did you hear that little click? To go through the click, right? To go through the click and then go all the way in. If you tighten the two Allen screws too much, you won't be able to push it in. It just locks it. So we go in, and then we're going to put all the way in there. And then we turn clockwise to open it, right? So to lock it, we just turn counterclockwise, and the Allen screws are pointing up and down versus left and right. Okay, so-called north and south versus east-west. So that's locked in. We already put in the kyber crystal. Now, in order to prevent this from moving in and out, you have to lock it. So how do you do that? You push the pommel, you rotate it so that the triangle ring is on top, and that locks it so nothing can move. And then this emitter is very simple. You just basically exert a little bit of force and it snaps into position. So everything looks great. And last but not least, we get the cover of the control box. And then we sort of gently squeeze it in. Trying to do it on the camera is not very good. So real life. So there you have it. Now we have the regular lightsaber. All the reveal components are now put back together. One thing is sometimes when you buy it, this ring is all the way here like that, and if it touches the area here, it can leave a very small scratch mark. That actually buffs out very, very easily with some brasso, but it's best not to have that even in the first place. But there was like a very, very small little, scratch. I think it's like right here. You can barely see it, but I buffed it out pretty nicely, with brasso. As you can see, it requires you literally on 1080p to go within like a centimeter of it to be able to see the faint hint, and that little hint is from the D-ring. But again, under normal inspection, it's these things are invisible essentially. Okay, so that's it. This is the Luke Reveal EFX lightsaber. See how easily this thing just kind of slides right out. So I'm going to put this aside. Let's put this thing back into position. So here's the base. You get a nice opportunity to see what it looks like without the stand on it. And then, as you can see, this thing, you can just do it separately. You can put it anywhere you want. So you can put it in the center, and then we'll rest it just like that. So you can see it's perfectly level. And we have it again, that if you open everything out, you put it in, it's fine as well. In fact, I guess I can show that to you. So here we go. So that's what it looks like fully opened. You can see that once it's fully elongated and the entire reveal is done, that it actually takes up almost the entire, length of the base. It's quite a long piece. So here you have that. You can see it's very important to put the right places where under the critic legs. You can see I just put the hilt right on the one leg with a wider curvature, the deeper curve, the wider concavity or concavity. You can see I'm putting it right at the edge there. And then the heat sink on this side, and because of the slight difference in the legs, if I go backwards, you can see that it's actually pretty straight. Okay? So there you have it. This is the Luke Skywalker Reveal lightsaber from Return of the Jedi. Whoa. Sorry about that. It almost began to slip off. I was trying to move it as far back as I could so you can actually see the whole thing. But now I'm going to have to actually keep it like this because it's too far back. But anyways, yeah, this is the Luke Skywalker Reveal lightsaber from Return of the Jedi. It's a deleted scene all the way back 12 years ago, released by EFX. I think without doubt this is their best release, which honestly is not saying much. They only released 3 lightsabers at that time, but it's definitely their best one. And in terms of like comparing it to the Master Replicas versions, of course there are some problems with it, not completely perfect, but again the sheer ambition of it, the ambition. Sorry, I was a little bit shaky here, just trying to get the right sort of the right look, but I'm going to move it just forward so I can do a little bit of a turnaround. But yeah, just like the sheer ambition, you can see that you can move it around on the base. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this like plaque leg moving everywhere, slide on the base. I like Master Replica's version a lot better. So anyways, um, just respecting the sheer ambition of it, the uniqueness, how unique it is, all the work that went into engineering it in metal. I give them a lot of credit, So I would say that easily EFX's best lightsaber. But if you want to compare it even to the Master Replicas line, it's not going to be as valuable because it doesn't have the legacy of the signatures, right? It's not going to nowhere. It's never going to be like, say, a Luke, signature edition, for instance. But I think this is probably like second tier, like not top 5, but it's gonna knock one of the Master Replicas lightsabers out of the top 10. Like, it's gonna be second tier. Okay. And if they had gotten Mark's signature with this bad boy, I think it would have been a top tier. It would have been a top 5. So, there you have it. It really is quite a remarkable work of art. I'm really, really happy I managed to get it. 10 years too late. So I paid about triple, quadruple what I could have paid. But at the end of the day, definitely worth it. So yeah, this is like a 1-hour review. Just because I ramble quite a bit. I kind of go off on all sorts of tangents, open stream of thought, consciousness. But I hope that in the middle of that rambling, as usual, I did get the chance to kind of show you all of the really, really cool parts of it and the intricacies of it, all the screws, like I said, quick, short videos, just the highlights, and to hear people gush, there's other YouTube videos for those. For me, better or worse, you know what you're going to get. If you've heard me before, I just go really, really in depth into these things. I talk about things. I talk about just, everything that comes to mind. And while I'm doing that, I do give you, I think, some really nice close-up shots of how things work. You can see in the back, you can see the little screws back here and here. That's what you use, the small, like mini Phillips screwdrivers to tighten it so it doesn't move. So hope you enjoyed that. I'll have more, obviously, Star Wars lightsaber reviews coming up. There's a lot I want to do. I want to compare this with the Luke version 2s and the Elite Edition, versions. A lot of kind of like mashups, comparing sabers hilts one to the other. I still haven't even made videos of some of the ones I've gotten in. I have some really nice signature plaques that's come. I'm working on kind of revisiting some of them. I have, as you know, all of them, but some of them don't come with signatures. I created custom signature plaques, and those have come in. I like to kind of put together, a video showing them in their case, because I think it just adds so much, to have a signature plaque. And I really wish that during the initial release, there was more of that available. But alas, there wasn't. And so, I took it upon myself to try to fill in those gaps as much as possible. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed that. Sorry for the little fumble near the end there. But until next time, do take care.